Okay, so I think we'll make a start. As I said, thank you very much for coming along. This is an overview of the draft new Public London Charter that we are consulting on at the moment. I am going to start, we'll move over to the agenda. So this is just briefly how we're going to run the session today. We'll do some welcome and introductions and housekeeping. Then I'll play a brief presentation for you, which is a bit of an overview of the Charter. And then we'll move into a Q&A session where feel free, please, to join in and leave you with a couple more notes on how you can find some more information. So firstly, we might just do introductions for the project team for everybody. We should all have our cameras on, hopefully. So as I said, I'm Lara Goldstein. I'm with the London Plan team.
I'm Elliot Kemp. I'm with the London Plan team too.
I am Tim Rattler from the GLA Regeneration team.
Paul Harper from the GLA Regeneration team.
And Catherine Tynes from the GLA Regeneration team.
Great.
Jo Baxendale from the Culture team.
Thank you very much. So that's our project team. Everyone's going to, I think, turn their cameras off again now, just so that it's not distracting for you. And yeah, let's get into it. So just a few housekeeping notes for you. This session will be recorded and will be put up onto YouTube afterwards, just so that you know your video and audio is not visible and the chat and Q&A will not be published. The link to the YouTube playlist for the presentation, the pre-recorded presentation, will be shared at the end of this presentation. And just some notes about behaviour. People who make discriminatory comments will be removed from this event. All attendees are muted and the presenters can't see or hear you, but feel free to like each other's questions, and also some event feedback might be coming, option for that might be given at the end as well. Sorry about that. Did that just cut out for anybody else?
Yes, it did, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why that happened. Let me go back into the PowerPoint. Okay, so London Plan guidance. The Public London Charter is London Plan guidance. It will be. It is pieces of guidance that support and are tied to the London Plan. The Public London Charter is tied to policy D8 public realm in the intend to publish London Plan, and that's why it will be London Plan guidance. A draft version of the Charter was published for information only in March this year, which was in advance of the scheduled mayoral elections, which have been postponed due to COVID related issues. And we're now formally consulting on the Charter in advance of the final London Plan being published. So I've just got a brief overview presentation to show you for the Public London Charter. So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen and share a new one. Just bear with me. The draft new Public London Charter. This presentation will provide an overview of the new draft Public London Charter that is currently out for formal consultation. I will be taking you through the policy context, how we have gotten to this point in the project, an overview of the document itself, and next steps. The Public London Charter will be London Plan guidance. It is tied to the new London Plan, currently known as the Intend to Publish London Plan, Policy D8 Public Realm, which is what gives the Charter its statutory teeth, so to speak. I have included the relevant sections of the policy up on the screen, which are Part G and supporting paragraph 3.8.9. This policy asserts that whether publicly or privately owned, public realm should be open, free to use, and offer the highest level of public access. these spaces should only have rules restricting the behaviour of the public that are considered essential for safe management of the space. This is essentially the premise of the Charter that we are developing, setting out the rights and responsibilities for the users, owners, and managers of public spaces, no matter who the landowners of these spaces are. The policy as a whole sets clear objectives for the management and public access to public space and commits the Mayor to the development of a public London Charter, which will support the provision of good quality public space across London. The Charter has been developed as part of the Good Growth by Design initiative. This supports the development of the Charter as part of the broader Public London inquiry to ensure that the public realm of the city remains somewhere where all Londoners are free to walk, meet, talk, eat, drink, trade, protest, debate, and celebrate. And crucially, that projects for public places can be grown out of the communities that live, work, and use these spaces day to day to ensure that our public realm is democratic and promotes civic participation. A number of the Mayor's design advocates are supporting the inquiry and have been of support during the development of the Charter as well. In recent years, there have been growing concerns over new restrictions being placed on people's use of public space, with increased interest about this in the press and academia. Many of you will be aware of the Guardian investigation into privately owned public spaces, or POPs as they are also known, which provided a snapshot of so-called pseudo-public spaces in London. Professor Matthew Carmona at UCL's Bartlett School of Planning has also worked extensively around the issue of the privatisation of public space, the publicisation of private space, and the development of new typologies of spaces in our global city. Creating an inclusive environment requires not only the consideration of the physical design of a space, but also careful consideration of how it is managed and governed, as this significantly affects the public life of the city. The development of the Public London Charter is an important step in responding to these concerns. The Charter, of course, will not exist in isolation. There are a number of other things going on that we are doing that have relevance for London's public spaces, some of which I have up on the screen. A City for All Londoners sets out the objective to promote good design in public spaces to improve everyone's quality of life. The Healthy Streets approach underpins the Mayor's transport strategy by giving direction to achieve this people-centric approach on London streets. Culture and the nighttime economy are another policy plank. This is about enabling performance and programmed events, but also London's everyday street culture that can be experienced for free. In the face of Brexit, the London is open message is nowhere more strongly manifested than in its public spaces. In June 2020, the Mayor of London announced a new Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm, who will work in partnership with councils, communities and stakeholders to review and improve diversity across London's public realm to ensure the capital's landmarks suitably reflect London's achievements and diversity. It is vital that all Londoners see themselves and their history reflected in London's public spaces, and once in place, the Commission will provide opportunities for members of the public to engage with and influence their work as it progresses. We are also producing a best practice design guide for non-traditional types of public spaces, such as sky gardens, viewing platforms, shopping malls, museums, or station concourses. As part of the development of the Charter, we commissioned the Centre for London to undertake a research project as part of the evidence base on which to develop the Charter. They produced a report which looked at existing public spaces in terms of access, regulation and enforcement, accountability, oversight and transparency, and resourcing, events and commercialisation. The GLA Intelligence Unit also undertook some research separately, exploring London's public realm from the user perspective, and this has proved helpful as part of the Charter's development as well. We also carried out an early engagement program last year where we talked to a range of stakeholders. We sat down and talked about the Charter and what would be most useful for it to address and cover before we developed the first draft. So this is the process so far and the overall project timeline. As I mentioned, the evidence-based work took place first, followed by the early engagement program and the drafting of the Public London Charter and accompanying equalities assessment. A draft for information only version of the Charter was published in March this year. Subsequently, we have further developed the draft in preparation for formal consultation. This consultation commenced on the 13th of October and it will close on the 15th of January next year. This event is part of a formal consultation engagement program during which we will be talking to a range of stakeholders, including the wider community and interest groups, London boroughs, and landowners and managers. So this is the draft Public London Charter that we are consulting on. The document comprises the following sections: the aims of the Public London Charter, some relevant background information, guidance for implementing the Charter at the planning application stage, the Public London Charter consisting of 8 principles, some supporting guidance for applying each of the principles, and finally a glossary of terms. The aim of the Charter is to provide a basis of the delivery and management of public spaces in new development. This links to the London Plan and the Good Growth by Design initiative. The section related to implementation of the Charter relates to how it is envisioned that the Charter will be implemented at the planning application stage. It covers what spaces it will apply to, i.e. public spaces proposed by an applicant of a new development as a public benefit, how it will be legally secured, for example, through a legal agreement, with example text to make it easier for boroughs to pick up and use included as well, and how applicants will need to demonstrate a space meets the requirements of the Charter. These are the 8 principles of the Charter. Each one, as I said, is supported by some additional guidance, and now I will take you through each individual principle in a little more detail. The exact wording of each principle will be up on the slides as I go through them. The first one is public welcome. This principle is about making sure that the public space is welcoming to all people. It should be kept clean, well maintained and well lit, and offer public amenities that reflect local requirements. The guidance for this principle touches on quality of life, well-being and sense of belonging, maintenance and cleaning of the space, things like drinking water fountains, public toilets and nighttime activities. Openness. This principle aims to ensure that the public space is open and offers the highest level of public access possible. The space should be understood as a part of London's continuous public realm, irrespective of land ownership. And the guidance for this principle touches on addressing severance, avoiding closures, and assessing the impact if there are closures. The principle of unrestricted use is about the public space only having rules restricting the behaviour of the public that are essential for safe management of the space. Users should be able to roam, rest and relax freely, and to be able to conduct activities that are permitted by law without causing a nuisance to others. The supporting guidance looks at avoiding petty restrictions on activities such as photography, a contextual approach where rules are developed in consultation and based on evidence with impact assessment, and an assumption that lawful activities like protest, dog walking, skating, eating and drinking are allowed. The principle of community focus aims to ensure that the public space enables users to meet, associate and spend time with others. The space should make provision for temporary community-led events and uses of the space that reflect local requirements. And the guidance that accompanies this principle looks at things like events that are locally rooted, such as markets, cultural and community events, encouraging local communities to have an active role in the planning and delivery of activities, and the importance of celebrating diversity in the public realm. Free of charge. This principle says that the public space should be generally free of charge for use by the public. Temporary commercial events can help meet running costs and so can be an important element in a successful public space. But it is important that any events that may come with charges such as an entrance fee should be announced in advance and should not unreasonably compromise the accessibility and enjoyment of the space for other users, either through their frequency or the extent of the space that is used. The supporting guidance notes the importance of striking a balance between the use of the spaces for temporary commercial events and ensuring that the space still remains overall open, accessible, and free to use and enjoy. Privacy and data. This principle addresses the issue of privacy and data. It explains that the public space should respect privacy and private property of all users. It should not be used to obtain personal biometric or digital data of individuals or apply other means to intrude on their privacy. The supporting guidance for this principle touches on a number of points, including that smart technologies can help with the collection, analysis, and sharing of data on the performance of the built and natural environment, water and energy consumption, air quality, noise, and congestion, that facial recognition can have a disproportionate effect on certain users, for example, women and BAME people, and data protection impact assessments. The principle of transparency looks at how compliance of the Public London Charter should be clearly signposted in the space. Users should have easy access on site to the principles of the Charter, together with details of the owner and management company and any additional site-specific regulations that may apply. Additional regulations, if needed, should be developed transparently and through consultation with interested parties and relevant stakeholders. And the guidance for this principle includes signposting of rights and rules and how any restrictions should be developed through a consultation process. The good stewardship principle is about the management of public space on behalf of all Londoners. Day-to-day supervision should be informal, with both supervision and maintenance carried out in a manner which is considerate of all users. The enforcement of any restrictions on the use of public space should be appropriate and reasonable. Any staff engaged in supervisory activities should undertake appropriate training with an emphasis on making people feel welcome. And the supporting guidance for this principle touches on how spaces can be informally supervised, how businesses fronting public spaces can help to foster more familiar and community-friendly stewardship, and how training and recruitment of supervisory and maintenance staff should strengthen equalities, diversity, and inclusion. Now back to the project timeline that I showed earlier. In terms of next steps, once formal consultation has ended in January next year, we will consider all feedback received during the consultation and amend the Charter accordingly. And we hope to publish the final Charter in summer next year. Now I'll take you back to the main consultation session. Thank you. Sorry, just had my camera off there for a moment. I will go back to the main presentation now. Oops, not that one, sorry. This one. That's better. Just bear with me a minute and I'll find the right slide. Okay, so that was just a brief overview for everybody of what the Public London Charter covers and what we've been doing so far to get to this point. So now we are just going to open the floor up, so to speak, to some questions. I'm going to bring back my colleague Tim Rattler, and Elliot Kemp is going to let us know if we have any questions. So over to you, audience.
Yes, if you can put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom, if you click on that, you can then write your question in there. But I might kick off with a question to Laura. So how did you decide on having 8 principles in the Charter? Where did they come from?
So we wanted to keep the Charter quite concise if we could. We thought that it wasn't really going to be very useful if it was pages and pages worth of Charter principles. So as I said, we did a lot of work up front. We engaged Centre for London, and the work that came out of their report sort of gave us a good understanding of what the issues are with public spaces and what we might need to address. And then the early engagement program, where we spoke to a range of stakeholders, including the sort of who I mentioned that we would be talking to during this program event. So we spoke to community members and civic interest groups. We spoke to London boroughs, and we also spoke to developers and like landowners and managers of spaces to get an idea of what the issues are in the spaces and what the charter would be most useful for it to address. So from that, we were able to kind of condense down and work out what the 8 main ones would be that would cover everything. And then hopefully the supporting guidance provides a bit more detail.
Okay, thank you. We've got a question in. So does the charter apply only for new developments and applications, or can it be applied respectively to existing public spaces?
Sure. So the charter will only be able to be applied to new spaces that are coming forward. We can't retrospectively apply it to any spaces that are in existence at the moment. But that's not to say that we hope this will be seen as a really positive initiative. So, you know, it's not to say that the landowner of an existing space couldn't say, if they were really supportive of it, that they, you know, would take on board the principles of the charter themselves as well. But the way that we see it being implemented is through a legal agreement at the planning application stage, which would mean that it would need to apply to new developments coming forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have, I'm just waiting for some more questions. Got some comments that maybe it needs to be a bit clearer in the charter that it only applies to new open spaces. That's a very helpful comment. I've got another question for you. So how has the consultation version that we see today differed from the one that was published in March?
Sure. So we have made a couple of changes since March. The reason that we published the version of the draft charter then is because we were anticipating that there would be the mayoral election in May, and we wanted to get a version out there to show that what has been done so far. Obviously, as I mentioned, the mayoral elections have been postponed, so we've taken the opportunity since to further mainly flesh the guidance out. So we've done some more kind of internal consultation and thinking about what would be useful to include in that. So we've mainly padded that out. We've included a glossary of terms, and we've included a bit more detail, mainly in the implementation section as well. But a few little tweaks here and there to other sections. But the guidance and the implementation are the main sections.
Okay, thank you. When would you expect the charter to be published?
So we are hoping to be able to publish it in summer next year. It has just been a little bit of a drawn out, lengthy process, a lot of steps to go through. But we are hoping that once the London plan is published, then we will be able to follow through with publishing the final charter in summer. There's just steps that we need to go through first. So I guess I did outline it, but we once consultation finishes, we will consider comments received and how to amend the charter, and then there's just an approvals process, and then we have to make sure that the London plan is published as well before we can publish the final.
Okay, thank you. Some of the comments we've got are asking about sort of maybe strengthening some of the sort of principles, particularly the one relating to free of charge. Maybe it's a good point to sort of explain how people can suggest how the charter can be changed, so more in line with what they're thinking and how it should work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. So we would love to get feedback from people on the individual principles, the charter as a whole. So we have a survey at the moment that we have out. We have a consultation platform, which I will be able to give you the details of how you can can find that easily just after this question session. And yeah, it's an online platform. It's really great. It's got a lot of information about the charter. You can download the charter and read that, the equalities impact assessment as well, a lot of related information. And as I mentioned, this survey, which we would love you to fill out. It would be really useful for us to get feedback. And there's quite a few questions on there that go through each of the individual principles, and we'd love your thoughts on if you think that it would benefit from any changes. Please tell us how and why. That would be great.
Okay.
Just to come back on that, I think that point on the free of charge principle that was in the question, and I guess that is, yeah, I think that is an interesting point to the point about balance between events and the sort of unfettered access of these spaces. And I guess the guidance tries to, I guess, to explain and unpack that a little bit, and also what could be good mitigation measures in terms of impact assessments around any events that close off parts of a space or an entire space and all of that. And I think it's also important maybe just to acknowledge that there are other principles around, particularly around openness and the community focus, hopefully that can help to, I think, sort of frame the free of charge principle as well as a little bit. But I think we note this concern that's been mentioned in the chat, and we'll obviously reflect on that.
Definitely.
Thank you, Tim. There's another question as a point regarding the activities. The permitted activities include drinking, and the question is, would this in any way conflict with controls over street drinking, which has been problematic in a lot of our local public spaces? Wondering whether either you, Tim, or Alara want to answer that one.
Do you want me to, Tim? I guess one point that I would just say with that is that the charter won't override any existing laws or legislation. So if there's any laws that are already in existence around street drinking, or we don't seek to override anything related to the police or anything like that. And also spaces, we do allow flexibility for landowners to set additional regulations and restrictions if in their space, I should say, sorry, on a site-by-site basis, if they feel that that's appropriate. So perhaps drinking may be something that would come up in that. But it would need to be justified as to why they would want to have that restriction, and it would need to be very clear in the space so people could understand that when they were there.
Okay, thank you. We've got another question as a broader one relating to the potential changes to the planning system outlined in the white paper. The charter, as I understand it, would be implemented through a Section 106 agreement. Potentially, you won't be able to do it that way under the new system. Have you thought about how we would implement it in the absence of using Section 106 agreements?
That's a good question. That might be something that we would need to take away and think about. But I suppose as we have to develop the charter considering the current policy context. So that's what we're working with at the moment. But I think there would be some other kind of legal agreement mechanism that we would probably suggest is the way forward.
Okay, thank you. We don't currently have any other questions, so if anyone in the audience would like to ask any questions, now's the time. So maybe give you a few moments to type away.
Yeah. Nothing else coming through?
Nothing. So maybe do you want to continue with your sort of slides, and if we have any last minute ones, we can cover them right at the end.
Okay, so just a slide just to outline, oh, I apologize, there's some traffic noise outside my flat. You can have your say. As I said, we'd love to get some comments from you and feedback that we can consider after consultation closes. And you can share your views by completing the surveys by the 15th of January that are in this link. And there are also some other pieces of guidance that are out for consultation at the moment that we would welcome your feedback on, so they can be found through the second link there on the screen. And just a few more bits of information for you. So we have the email address for this project that you can contact us through general inquiries at londonplan@london.gov.uk. We have a telephone number if you would prefer to call through that way. And you can follow us on Twitter now. We have a new Twitter account, which is at @LDN_planning. And you can sign up for the GLA planning newsletter as well, which is this link here. And as I said, there's some other planning pieces of planning work that are out for consultation, which you can find at the link on the screen as well. And the recorded presentation will be put up on YouTube after this, so you'll be able to view it again and see all of these links and the other information. And that about brings us to a close, unless there's any final questions.
There's one last question. It's about whether there's been any consideration about conflicts between the different principles. Have you thought about that one principle could be in conflicting with another one?
We have tried to. We have had quite a lot of discussion backwards and forwards when we were developing the principles, and we have tried to speak to as many people as possible across the GLA and wider to try and make sure that we are not creating any kind of unforeseen consequences, unintended consequences. But if there's anything that you feel that would be good to bring to our attention or that we should think about again, would be great if you would fill out the survey, or you can email through comments to us as well. And we'll certainly take that into consideration. Okay,
thank you. I don't think there are any more questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I'll go back to the screen. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. It was really great, and I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.